All right, so let's get it started, you guys. I know listen, this is a big topic. Everybody needs to know how to do it in real estate, how to handle buyer objections in this type of market. There's a lot of them with high interest rates and pricing and inflation and so forth. So I think it's a big topic to talk about today on what are the best objection handlers and how are you guiding and advising buyers to move forward and stay moving forward to close on houses. I've been sharing with everybody, and I'll just open it up with this. I've been sharing with everyone, it's not the number of leads that you receive or the number of contacts you have. It's the number that you are really skilled at in converting, right? Because it really doesn't come down to lead generation in a sense. It comes down to lead conversion. That's it. That's the name of the ball game. And you have to really understand where people are coming from, because right now, a lot of people are working out of fear, whether it's realtors or it is buyers or sellers, and we have to guide them through that. So I love this topic on how to handle buyer objections. So this is who I'm going to start out with on this one. I want to start out with Wendy, because she is the rose amongst a bunch of thorns. And I want her to kind of share some tips or some practices that she's utilizing right now successfully to keep buyers moving forward and handling their objections on the market right now.
It's an interesting time for sure. And I think we've all heard the sort of glib adage that's going around, marry the house, date the rate. And that sometimes works. I tend to work with a deeply analytical client base. So we kind of have to get into the weeds with my clients. And the most important thing is, what is your main goal? What is the property that you want? Why do you want it? Let's focus on that. And the numbers will take care of themselves, whether that be we negotiate a seller rate buy down, whether we negotiate a different type of loan, whether we go into a 7 or a 10-year ARM. We talk intelligently about what is the main goal, and let's not get stuck in the weeds on the minutia, because we can fix the rate. There are ways to get around it. I've had a fair degree of success with that. And being older, I'm not in my 20s and 30s. A lot of my clients are also in their 50s and 60s. We're doing a lot of conversation about purchasing with reverse mortgages. And that's really helpful. Free up your cash flow, and we talk about the overall financial aspect of this investment. And it kind of takes the pain out of that part of it.
And when you're doing that, so let me kind of follow up with that, because that's a great point, especially on a lot of reverse mortgages. We're seeing a lot of people getting to an age where they're either looking at reverse mortgages or they have one, and they're getting out of them, right? Because they're going to their next phase. So just speak upon that. How do you guide them through that and explaining, is this the time for them to sell and pay off the reverse mortgage, or look at getting a reverse mortgage?
This gets into a conversation about their larger financial picture. So we have to be very careful with what we talk about, not, because most of us aren't registered financial analysts. But in many cases, it does make sense for them to pay off the reverse mortgage, especially if they're buying another property, and then probably get a new one. But there's no one size fits all to this question. Sometimes it makes sense to pay it off and do something else with the assets. But in a market like this, where Wall Street's being kind of wonky, most people are preferring to pull their money out of Wall Street and put it into dirt, which is what we do best. And if they're going to put it into dirt, then we have to have the conversation about how much of your capital do you want tied up in the dirt, or do you want to keep some of it slushy? They may want to buy the property outright with the cash they got from selling the other one, paying off the loan, and just put a reverse equity line of credit there, where they're not drawing on it, but they have the reserves there should something happen that they want to use it. It's a highly nuanced question.
Right. It's a complicated question, because you have to formulate it on each individual and what their financial goals are, definitely.
Precisely. But that's why we're the advocates. That's why they come to us. We're advising them.
What are a lot of the buyer objections you're seeing in your marketplace? And remind everybody the marketplace you're in and what you specialize in.
I'm in Orange County, and I'm actually a middle market specialist. But for here, that's about $1 to $2 million. That's kind of my sweet spot. So that's the middle market here. I know it's nutty, right?
Yeah,
So
Cameron just almost spit up his coffee when
yeah,
you said that, because it's a middle market.
yeah,
I love that. That's how you guys on the West Coast, where it's the land of the fruits and nuts, that's how we refer to things. The middle market is $1 million to $3 million,
right.
where everybody else would say that that's super luxury in their market. But I mean, right now in this marketplace, which it's kind of weird where we're not seeing a lot of inventory build up. And a lot of buyers are moving to the sidelines. How do you keep people motivated in moving forward?
I'm finding I'm having a great deal of success with that, because here our inventory is not building up. And in Orange County, for those of you who don't know, we're sandwiched in between Los Angeles and San Diego counties. And all the Southern California news is saying housing inventory is building up, it's a buyer's market. That's not happening here at all. Homes are still selling in a couple of weeks here because there's so little inventory. So any of my buyers who started out with objections saying, I'm going to wait for the perfect one, they're starting to see really quickly, it's gone, it's gone, it's gone, it's gone. So the market's helping me. But what I'm having to do is get them to understand there's so little inventory, and there's so many of you still who were on the sidelines that now when you see it, you have to go see it today, and you have to write an offer tonight or you're not going to get it. And that's where we're having to push them a little bit and say, I know you're hearing this, but let me show you the data that's hyper local, because real estate is hyper local. So don't listen to the news, because you're going to miss it.
I love it, Wendy. You're dead on. You're hitting the bullseye dead on, because it is hyper local, you guys. And notice how smooth Wendy is. She supports it with data. She's not saying they're wrong. She's saying, look, let me educate you. And then she creates urgency. And when you create urgency, or you do the takeaway, people want it even more, because they come in with obstacles up and apprehensive to move forward. And we have to kind of guide them. That's dynamite stuff, Wendy. This is why you are on this, and the queen of Orange County, and making it happen. I love it. I'm going to move from Wendy over to Brian Moses. He's delivering people to the promised land. National coach. You guys, if you're not coaching with Brian, you're missing the boat. I'm telling you, you will 10x your production with Brian Moses. And he is the guy who will break everything down. He used to be the #1 agent in the world for Coldwell Banker. He knows real estate inside and out. And guess what? He's navigated these types of markets before with these types of buyers. What can you give as far as advice for people out there every day right now who are prospecting, who are getting a lot of buyer objections? Hey, the market's too high. It's not the right time to buy. Nobody knows what's going to happen. We're going into a recession. What would you say upon that, and how would you guide them?
Okay, so high level first, Pete. I would pump the brakes and pull back a little bit. I think that real estate agents make this mistake of selling themselves, selling it's a great time to buy, it's a great time to sell, pitch, pitch, pitch. And when you sell, pitch, 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 people don't want to be sold. They push you back. So I'll give you an example. When I first met my wife, it was a blind date. I didn't say to her, hey, Janet, you're really attractive. How do you feel about getting married and knocking out a couple of kids? But that's what real estate agents do. How soon are you looking to buy? How soon are you looking to sell? Are you working with a realtor? Let's pump the brakes. A couple of words that I really like to use that have made me millions of dollars in commissions is the word if. The word if. Hey, if we could find you a home that matched your criteria, that hit all the check boxes, and I'm not saying we can, man, inventory is short, but if we could find it, there's no harm in looking for it. We've got a buyer advantage program, and I can enter in all your criteria. And let's use risk reversal. There's no cost. There's no obligation for this service. I'm happy to do it for you. It's what I do. And if you see, there's no obligation to buy a home, ever even look at a home. But if you see something that you like, we can talk about it. What do you say? What do you say, punk? Huh? What do you say? Right? So they go, okay, there's no harm in that. And now I've got a date with my wife, right? I've got a date. So then I can date you can date the buyer, get them advanced, educate them while you're, while you're with them, and move them along in the process. The other thing that I like to do, so the word "if" will get you a long way. I like to describe that buyers want a good deal. They want selection in a market where there's not a lot of selection, and they want it to be convenient. So I like to talk about the types of real estate that exist, not the type that they're necessarily going to buy, but I want to hook them with the perception of that working with me, looking with me, will get you access to great deals. In the state of California, there are bank foreclosures. There, in the entire state of Tennessee, in the entire state of Texas. Let's go high level. There are bank foreclosures. There are corporate-owned properties. There are families that are getting divorced who are forced to sell by the courts. There are IRS and government seized homes. There are price reductions. There are probates in estates. Somebody passed away and their family is liquidating their asset. So I say to a buyer, complete stranger, they go, yeah, we're going to pump the brakes. We're going to wait. We're not going to do anything. Yeah, we can do that. But I have access to these great deals: bank foreclosures, corporate-owned properties, distress sales, probates, estates, sellers in trouble. There's no harm in looking, right? If I were able to find you a really great deal, because I have access to all these properties, would it be okay to share them with you? Hey, Janet, would it be okay if I took you out to dinner? I don't want a relationship. I'm not looking for a commitment. I don't want to have kids. I don't want to get married. But you got to eat, don't you? So a buyer's got to look at homes. So let's look at homes and let's make it super sexy, super irresistible, super non-threatening. And you'll be shooting fish in a barrel, Pete.
I love it. Yeah, that's just touch upon that, Brian. You know, one of the big things I love to say is, if I could, would you? Right? If I could find you an unbelievable opportunity, would that be something that you would act upon? Would that be something?
If I could find you a deal where the sellers have to sell it and they priced it below market, would it be okay to tell you about it?
Right. There you go. I love it. That's great advice. I love the if. I love the very nonchalant, because everybody does try to marry everyone and they don't try to date and build the relationship. It's a trust game. You have to build trust, and trust sometimes takes time. And you have to really understand, as Wendy was saying, you have to understand what their circumstances are, right? I mean, the most motivated buyers right now are coming from other destinations, or their family is growing, or they need a tax write-off. They need something, right? Or they need to diversify. There's a lot of D's, right? We were talking about this the other day. Death, divorce, debt, destination, and diversification. So those 5 Ds play a huge role in real estate, especially in markets like this, because it's not where everybody moves to the sideline. Nobody buys any houses. There's always going to be people buying. There's always going to be people selling. There's always going to be people dying. There's always going to be people getting divorced. There's always going to be people being relocated or in or out of the state and so forth. So you got to find those types of people. I saw that the ROG just got on. That's my brother from Philly, otherwise known as the real estate opportunity guy. There he is, the ROG. Look at Happy New Year. He's fired up. He's standing at his desk. So let me ask you this. When you're dealing with buyers, what objections are you handling right now? Because, a lot of us have similar ones, but how are you isolating those objections and then moving them past it to keep them moving in the process of trying to find an opportunity?
One of the things, and again, Brian way out punted his coverage when he married Janet. That was the best sale ever.
Oh, by far. By far.
And I know Janet, I've known Brian 30 years.
Listen, Craig, she thought she was just getting a free dinner.
Great.
She didn't, the poor woman didn't even know what she was signing up for. She thought she was getting a free dinner.
Yeah, look what happened later. A son playing at Vanderbilt. There you go. So, hey, we all know buyers are going to have objections. That's their job. One of the things that I've delved deeper in is, because now we have the time to do it, is find out what their story is. Their story being, what is your situation? What is your target? What are the objections you're going to run into? What are the responses to the objection you're going to run into? And what are the yikes and the yield? The yikes are, what happens if we don't? Where are you going to be living? Parents, homeless, jail or military, or paying somebody else's rent or your own? Yields are, you own your own house, you get write-offs for now, you do all this, you can always refinance 36 to 48 months. Wendy had a great thing, 7 to 10 year notes. Guess what? Most people in their house 7.8 years until COVID. Now it's 11 or 12. So the number works. The mortgage company is going to get their money now, or they're going to get their money later. It's their front end loading it on the 30 versus the other stuff. It's a matter of becoming a consultant, like you've said, Pete, in the past. Stop talking about commissions and talk about your professional fees. Stop talking about selling them something and talk about consulting them in something. Find their point of pain. I said to a buyer the other day, I said, we're in an informational point. We're not doing a triple bypass on your heart right away to buy a house. Right now, we're putting the ink in you to find out if there is a problem. What is the pain? Then what is the pain to get through it by putting a stent in? We might have to do a bypass and you might have to stay as a tenant, but you might not. So put it into in the verbiages that they hear more and see more than they do hearing these words as a layman. They don't buy a house that often. This is a lot of first-time home buyers. This is upgrades. And by the way, if you're working with doctors out there, there are 100% loans out there at interest between 5 and 5.5 versus having a 20% down 7 and 10. The payment's less. They love you. They're not parting with money, and they're referring everybody to you. Know the products. Don't just do vanilla and chocolate. Start selling and presenting gelato. Personally, I like gelato better.
I love gelato.
You know what I mean? So stop doing vanilla and chocolate. Figure out how to gelato to your clients. They're going to be wowed by you, and they're going to refer more people to you because now you're a consultant that gets professional fees, not just a guy running up and down the street saying, buy a house for me, buy a house for me, come sleep with me, come do that. No. So there you go. That's coming from Philly.
Listen, gold. It's gold from Philly. It's like getting a great cheesesteak, right? Tell the story. Go down the story again. What was S?
S is situation.
Situation. What's T?
Target. What's your target? What's your timeline? Where do you need to be? What are you looking for? What happens if we don't find that is the objections.
So story, target, and timeline. What's O?
Story, target, which is timeline. O is objections. What objections you're going to run into? I can't find the house where I want to be. I can't find the right bedrooms. It might be too high in price. It's not available right now. I can't get out of my lease. R is the responses to the objections. How do we get it? Maybe we can buy you out of the lease. Maybe we can buy you out of a lease if we find some. Maybe we can get you as a doctor's note. You're not putting 20% down. You're doing the other loans. Maybe you're doing, as Wendy said, the 7 to 10s. And then the Y is the yield and the yikes. The win that you can have or the yikes if you don't do it. The yikes and the yields, the good and the bad. So story. Just remember story, go through the process, and that's the easiest way to present it to them.
I love it. I love the story because every part of that finds a solution, right? We have to be solution oriented. We can't focus on the problem. We got to focus on the solutions. And a lot of people don't know what the solutions are. We have to guide them, you guys, and really understand the numbers and really break it down to them, because a lot of people aren't even aware on the mortgage interest and on the property taxes that they can write all that off, right? So they don't know that that's the benefit of home ownership, or better yet, if they're buying an investment, that they can depreciate that asset. So we have to really kind of bridge that gap. I love that. Lurchy.
Pete, one thing, by the way, everybody, here's first question is, number one question. Sometimes we want to ask people out on date, like Brian, they might be married. Say, by the way, do you have an agent that you're working with that you have to work with? Yes, great. I'll answer whatever your questions are. Move on at that point. Understand that why spend time with them? Don't go there, because if you got to ask, you got to educate them, and then ask them. And then point blank, if you don't, are you the kind of person that wants a dog and pony show in a circus, Or do you want me to roll my sleeves up with you and we go through your story of your situation? We talk about you instead of how great I am. Which one do you want? I'll do either one. So give them the choice. They've now committed to you of what they want, and then you go that direction. So
No, it's great stuff, and everybody needs to hear this because it's building that relationship and that trust factor and really guiding them and advising them. We have to get back to that place where we were doing it prior to the pandemic, where people were walking in and falling over and buying a house. It's not going to happen anymore. You have to really show your skill level and your trade craft that you know what you're doing and know how to listen really well and ask questions and formulate the solution for them, because everybody's got a story, right? And every story is different, and you have to know how to break that down. So I'm going to go from Craig. We're going to go to the mountains of Park City, where, you know, Dave works in the median price there. It's only 4 to 25 million. Everybody else, Cameron, you might want to get coffee while Dave's talking because that's his median price. Dave,
Yeah.
So
I wish.
share with everybody, you guys, Dave has some unbelievable skills with dealing with buyers, getting them to move forward, and explaining to them why now is a way better time to buy than it was even 6 or 12 months ago when the rates were great. And Dave, touch upon that. Dave does a whole thing on it, you guys. I was blown away by it. And by the end of his presentation, I actually asked Dave to buy me something, like find me something so I can buy. He converted me. So Dave, go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really believe in is using stories, using things that you know without a shadow of a doubt. So we're all in different markets, right? Where's the market going to be in your marketplace in 6 months? We don't know, right? Nobody really knows. You know what I do know is I know what happened in 6 or 9 or 12 months ago in my market. And it is so much better to buy right now than it is to buy back then. That's what we do. And so I started doing coaching and training programs from my company on just that. In fact, I did them in Pete's office. I helped Dennis. I helped Matt. I've done this in a bunch of different offices and stuff around the country. And what's really great about it is 2 things happen. Number one, the agents that learn how to use this technique and the people that do it sell more real estate. And yesterday, I only got 2 leads from EXP agents around the country from people that I helped, right? I only got 2 yesterday. Okay. So if you use data from the past, people really will recognize it. Especially, I love what Wendy said. What did she say? I work with a lot of what type of buyers? Analytical buyers, right? And when you have an analytical and you can show them the numbers, man, it's like they got 4, we call it, got 4 flat tires. In other words, they ain't going nowhere, right? So anyway, so that's one of the things that I do. The other thing is you have to understand if you have agents that you're working with or you're working with buyers, you have to absolutely get good in the presentation. So Pete, when I did the presentation, was it pretty good and did it convince you?
It was great. Right? I was ready to buy from you.
Yeah. And so everybody, the thing is, you make 10 or 20 or $40,000 an hour because if you can do a presentation that gets a client to work with you, all the rest is just getting the deal done. So you have to know how to practice, to role play, to work on it. I have my agents, we do 15 to 30 minutes, 3 times a week of role play on our team, and it makes a huge difference. The other thing is I just sent out yesterday. So I have in my coaching program something I call 2-Minute Tuesdays. A few of you got the one yesterday. It's called Yes, No, or Maybe. But but basically it is a way to try to help agents ask enough questions. I can't remember who said it, but I think it was Craig. Did you say, don't be the guy, or Brian, don't be the guy that is being confrontational all the time. Brian, when do you want to move? Where are you going? What do you want to do? What did the last agent do that you didn't like? Blah, 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 right? Time out doesn't work, right? So don't ever ask confrontational questions, ask conversational questions, right? So Brian, I'm curious, if you sold your home, where would you be going, right? That is way softer than, Brian, if you sold your home, where are you going next, right? So, so I think that that's really important. And the other thing is, somebody mentioned use stories. In our marketplace, our market is still pretty good. I think, we closed like 14 deals or something, or 14 last month. Use stories like, like Wendy said, our inventory is not really going down. So the story that happened yesterday that I have my agents that are working with buyers is, for instance, yesterday, we got multiple offers on one property, right? And so these are the kinds of things that you can do to try to help people understand that, it's, I always say I was a business and economics major in college. It was a long time ago. I don't remember much, but I remember supply and demand. The supply is not going up and the demand is not going down. That means prices are going to be basically stable. So basically, that's what I have for today.
I love that. Supply and demand, you guys. Just remember SD, supply and demand, in stories and data, because data is powerful. It's not somebody's opinion. It's not something that you're just throwing into the wind. It's real numbers, and people like to hear that. And when you can support a story, like a very personalized, intimate story with data, it's extremely powerful when you're speaking with clientele, and you bring them to that success. You bring them to that closing. You bring them to that, handing them the keys to that house, and how their life is going to be different and how it's going to benefit them, not just financially, but emotionally and in every aspect. Okay. So I want to go from.
Yeah, Pete, let me add one thing else.
Sure.
Use this, everybody. One of the things that I came up with this term QTR. Anybody know what that is? Okay, Dennis, what is it?
Quality time remaining. Great.
Yes. So we have, because we're in a resort market, we use this QTR, and you just say it like they know what it is. Dennis, your QTR is so important to you and your family. So let's talk about how that's going to benefit you. And then what's he say?
What's QTR, Dave?
Well, it's quality time remaining. I mean, you told me that you have a son who's 12 and a daughter who's 14, and now you're thinking of waiting a year or two to buy. I completely understand. And if I were you, I'd feel that way as well. But the thing is your kids are going to be 13 and 16 or 14 and 17. And then what? And then I use a story. I mean, I had 2 kids. I brought them out to Park City when I was living in San Diego. I brought them out to Park City. And I can tell you, when they were growing up, some of the very best stories were of our memories ever is with us going skiing. So what you do is and if they go, well, I still think I'm going to wait 2 years. And I say, so Dennis, so basically you're telling me you don't really care about your kids, right? And you don't want to build any memories, right? Now, you don't say it like that, but that's it, right? Essentially, that's what you are saying. So anyway.
I think that's a dynamite point, Dave. And I just want to speak to everyone out there. And I think Brian would say this too. You can see how he anchors on emotion and he anchors on life experiences. And then he paints the picture. He actually transports his client to that very place or to the future, right? Of what's important to him and why are they doing this? He gets to their why. Because once you know somebody's why, the how is easy, right? It's very, very easy. And I like that. I like the QTR. Everybody remember QTR. So two of the big points today, no offense to Moses, he did hook his wife, but it comes down to story and QTR and if, right? And Wendy was right on with the data and understanding the market because it's hyper local and really sharing the facts. No specifics, you guys. Know exactly how many houses on the market. Right now in San Diego County, we have 3,062 houses on the market. Don't say it's around 3,000. Don't say it's around 4,000. Be specific, because when you're specific, people like that. The devil is in the details. The fortune is in the follow-up. But you have to have really good skills. And notice, this is what I love about Dave. He's very non-threatening, right? It's like having, for me, it's like having a little bit older brother who's kind of guiding you and talking to you very nicely, right? And Dave is he disarms all the objections by his tonality and his pauses and how he goes with it. He never, contradicts what they say or tries to tell them they're wrong. He's like, wow, that's interesting. I'm just kind of curious. How about this? Right? Because it's all in how you fluctuate your voice and you change your tonality. And then the question that you ask that helps anchor them to what they're there to do in the first place, which is to buy real estate for them and their family. Okay, I want to go from Dave. Dave, that was dynamite stuff. And you know who I'm going to next. We got to start off the year. He's not bragging. He's just applying for a job. All right. Matt Battiata, the man, the myth, the legend. Matt, what are you seeing in the marketplace right now? What objections are you getting from clients after you met them, after you've found out what their why is or their pain or what they're trying to accomplish or what their goals are? What objections are you handling to overcome to not allow them to stall out? Because a lot of people start the search, then they put it on hold or they get nervous or something throws them off, whether it's rates or the national news or something.
Yeah, so the big, matter of fact, I was just sending an email this morning before this call addressing that. So the big objection that I see right now is and I think everybody's seeing this, is people sitting on the fence and not wanting to do anything because they want to see what happens with the market. And so a couple of people have already mentioned this, but I like to use stories because stories are really, really powerful. So for example, first of all, you got to know where rates are and where the market is right now. Jumbo rates, I just was looking this morning. Chase Bank has jumbo rates. APR is 5.35%. That is historically really, really low. I mean, that's a great rate. That wouldn't even be a bad rate for 9 months ago. You know what I mean? So rates are actually pretty good. In this email I was sending, I was saying, the Fed looks like they think that they're getting inflation in check. And so rates, who knows what rates are going to do, but right now they're pretty darn good. And we've been working with a lot of clients who are getting some incredible deals. And that's where telling stories comes in. So, and if you don't have your own stories, you can go on the MLS and pull up stories. In other words, look, this model match to this home was selling, sold 8 months ago for $1,750,000. We just put one into escrow, or one just went into escrow at $1,275,000. That's a gigantic difference. Here in San Diego, and I bet a lot of markets, maybe not Park City, but a lot of markets, things are selling for 15-20% off of the prices from last year. So there's a real opportunity. Every buyer out there, they all listen to the same radio station, right? What's in it for me? WIFM. So what do they all want? They all want a deal. They want a distressed sale. They want a foreclosure. They want a deal. And so you got to tell stories. We just put a property into escrow that was selling at would have been selling at 2.2. One just sold for $1.6 million. There are deals out there. A lot of my clients are sellers that are going to buy. So I'm going to them and saying, look, inventory is really low. That's really good for a seller, not so great for a buyer. So right now, what we want to do is capitalize on the low inventory, get your house into escrow, make the close contingent on you finding your next home. And then when inventory picks up in the springtime, which is only a month away, then we can get out there and make an offer. We can be ready to pounce on something. So, the bottom line is you need to be talking with the buyers. You need to be finding out what their pain points are and what their objectives are. But the biggest objection I think that everybody is dealing with is buyers wanting to wait. And there's really no reason for them to be waiting right now. So I like using stories, and everybody said that, but stories about buyers who are getting deals. And they are out there, especially in San Diego, and I'm sure in a lot of other markets, maybe not Park City. But there are deals that are happening out there. I mean, serious deals, $200,000, $300,000, houses that are in the mid 1 million selling in the low 1 millions. That's really significant. And like Dave says in his great presentation that he gives, 6-9 months ago, a year ago, you were paying $200,000 over the list price. Now you're getting things for 15 to 20% off, which is really, really significant. So I think just using stories and having conversations. There are a lot of people that were selling last year where their homes didn't sell. They're going to come back on the market. Everybody should be looking at expireds. Also, talking to all your past clients, because somebody that wanted to sell last year and didn't sell, they still have the same reasons for wanting to sell. And you need to talk with them because they're going to go back on the market and you want them to go back on the market with you.
I love that. Reasons don't change, just timelines and timing. That's it. Mm-hmm. Right. The baby whisperer, Randy Zimnotch, has his hand up. So I want to go ahead, Randy.
I wanted to see how long Pete's going to ignore me, but I'm doing my best here.
I thought you were going through a feeding cycle or something for a minute there. Go ahead.
So I just want to give you a different angle on things, since I always kind of speak from the investor mindset too. One thing, I have a client that was referred to me from Canada, right? Moved here, I think 6 months ago, sold his house in Canada, has $400,000 in cash, and he wants to buy a home, in a good school district. And he's like, well, the mortgage company approved me only for $400,000 loan. And he's like, what should I do, Randy? Should I spend all my cash and put down 400,000 and get a loan for the difference of 410 that I got approved for? Should I buy rental properties? These are the questions that he was asking me. Well, the good news is that I have inventory providers that I already built relationships with throughout the country. So I can easily speak to that and say, look, I can't answer that because that's all math right now, right? Because he's like, what if I buy rental properties and it will offset my rent here? And then my wife is going to get a job. So then I could get a higher loan later, right? Like, I was like, look, how about we do this? How about we look at it from both angles? Let me connect you to a couple other lenders to see if there's another opportunity of a higher loan. I was like, in the meantime, let me also connect you to a couple inventory providers so you can go through a discovery call with them and see what would that look like. Because I was like, you might potentially be able to buy with 400,000, you might be able to buy 2 properties that are single family homes rentals with that money, right? And I gave him kind of rough numbers because I understand how that works. Or you might be able to buy even four houses if you want to put down 25% and get loans for the other 75% on those rentals. So there's so many different things you can do. However, I'm not the inventory provider myself, so I can't speak to the details, but I have a few I can recommend to you and go through the discovery calls. So now we're basically attacking both avenues. In the meantime, I connected him to my right-hand agent, Jessica. She's going through the discovery call with him about his wish list, getting him used to the areas in San Diego. So we're not getting off the path of him not buying here yet. I haven't written that off for him, and I never would, right? I was like, look, let's explore both options. And then once you actually explore both options, you might actually decide no, I want to buy a home here. And you might fall in love with a home here. Who knows? And you might not care about the rentals at that point. But at the same time, let's explore the rental option, right? And the good news is, guys, that I have relationships with the inventory providers. If he does end up buying, they'll pay me $1,500 for every home he buys. It's not a lot, I guess, but it could add up. If he buys three, four, 5 homes down the road and starts building a portfolio, it's a $1,500 checks that will just show up as a referral, right? And I can, if I can try, I refer these because I actually have hundreds and hundreds of investors that I know that I went through them and bought, so I can speak from that. But at the same time, I don't guarantee anything, right? I always say, look, owning a rental, there's always going to be ups and downs. You never know. You can't just buy one and hope that you're going to get, rich off it or not have any issues. So you got to diversify your portfolio. You got to buy more, right? Because one will be, crappy at some point because it might need more work than expected. The other ones will be amazing. So I was like, so just be mindful. There's risk in doing that, right? Because I don't want to paint a picture that it's just so lovely. You buy these rentals and you do absolutely nothing, which could be the case because I have rentals like that. And literally it is like that. Property manager takes care of everything. All that to say is kind of back to all what you guys are saying, like, what are your goals, right? And when they bring up these type of questions, and I know a lot of people that are moving, especially from California with a lot of cash to your area, these are the questions they might ask you, like, what if I just buy rental properties? What's your answer? If you stumble around, guess what? They're probably going to go to a realtor that will have a good answer for them. Period, right? And it's not that hard to build those relationships. So if you want, email me. If you want, I can recommend you just a few of these inventory providers. Just do your own discovery calls with them, right? Don't take my word on it. Go through the process as if you were a buyer. Understand their process first. Then you can refer them to other people, right? And if you end up connecting the buyer with them, you'll make $1,500. But now you have something in your arsenal, in your tool belt. So when you get that question, you're like, bam, let me talk about it. That's it.
And you guys aren't familiar with this, but Randy started a whole new program. It's called Get a Baby with a Big Portfolio. So every time you buy a big portfolio, it gives a baby away. Oh, that's great stuff. That's great stuff because you have to be solution oriented with that. I want to go from Randy over to the #1 EXP agent in the United States. Chandra, he's coming in hot. Look at him. He's got the biggest smile on his face. You know why? Because he's selling a lot of real estate. Chandra, what are you seeing right now and how are you overcoming buyers' objections in this market, especially when people say, look, the prices have been rising astronomically for the last couple of years and people in our area haven't been making more money. So I'm just going to wait till the market crashes. How are you handling those types of objections?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank Brian and Dennis for having me here. This is my first top producer panel. I'm glad to be here. I got to learn a lot of things while I was on the call. Generally, when I work with buyers, I just want to focus more on the goals they want to achieve, not so much on the financials part, because when I talk about working with a buyer, obviously, we start understanding their goals. And I would like to use my own example when I talk about how they want to achieve their goals and why, one of the first questions that you always get right now is it the right time to buy? So how do you answer that question? So I always talk about my own example. When somebody comes to me and says, when I look at their personal profile, they say they have small kids and they have a job and they have a small space and they want to upgrade their place. I always talk about, hey, when I bought my home, I have like 2 little kids. They do a lot of gymnastics. I had very small place before. I couldn't do much with them. And I was playing gymnastics with them, doing a lot of stuff in my current home. Now they are like, 12 and 7. I can't do the same things that I was able to do, 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So you can't get that time back. The memories that you have built are intangible. So I always talk about, more than the financials, I focus on what they are trying to achieve with the home. So definitely I use myself as an example. That's one thing I always do. And data is definitely something that is very important. We work in both Washington and Texas. Both are very different markets. For example, in Washington, when we talk about the data, I show them, hey, what has happened historically in the last 24 months. So for example, in Washington, in December, we had more pending sales than new homes that came into the market. If you look at November, we had 90% pending homes compared to new homes. If you look at October, it was 70%. If you look at September, it was 60%. So as you look at each month, the number of pending homes have increased quite a bit compared to the new supply. So when you talk about this kind of data, right? So the buyers understand, hey, the market is changing. How much it is changing, nobody can predict, but definitely they see the change. So there are more buyers coming into the market than the new supply that is coming into the market. So definitely they see the change. And then that creates that kind of urgency. Rather than you telling them, hey, you should go and buy the home, the data will speak for itself. So those are a couple of things that we definitely focus on. The other part that I strongly recommend for a lot of people that work really well for our team is that we never tell them that you have to buy a home right now. We always tell them, hey, you should always explore the market, figure out whether it is the right time for you to buy or not. So 12 months later, you should not repent that you should have explored the market a year ago. So you should at least explore the market, figure out whether it is the right market for you. Are you getting the deals that you want? Are you finding the homes that you want based on the financials you have? There is no obligation. Just explore the market and figure it out. And if you don't find this is the right market to buy the home, that's perfectly okay. But at least we don't want you to repent 12 months later or a year later that you haven't explored the market, because you never know how things could change. So that no obligation approach is something that we always need to keep in mind. I know a lot of other panelists already talked about not pushing the buyers, not doing like a typical agent sale. That's something that we always try to avoid because you should work with them as if you're a friend or a family member trying to find a home for them, not a real estate agent who is pushing you to get the home and buy the home. So those are some things that we definitely focus on. And the last one and the most important thing that that worked really well for us is customer obsession, meaning always working backwards from the customer. So many a times you work with different types of customers and different personalities. They come up with different things, but based on your experience, you may or may not find it right. But you always need to step back and think through why you are getting such, a specific question. You may find that the question they're asking is not relevant to the sale at all, or not relevant to the market you're in. But always think through, why the question is coming up, and you always should think about the customer being right and work backwards from there. Then you will always find the answer and be able to help them appropriately. So the reason why I'm talking about this is that most of our business has grown because of referrals. We have clients that have bought like 6th home, 7th home with us, and they refer multiple clients to us, primarily because of the trust factor we build with them. And the other thing that we focus quite a bit is transparency, meaning, so I don't, many times what happens is that we ourselves make a mistake, and then we go to the buyers or the clients and try to tell them that everything we did is right, the other party did wrong.
I love it.
It's the usual tendency that happens, but I always feel that that's not something that that will gain you trust with the client. So when we make a mistake, we always go to them and tell them, hey, we made this mistake. This is how it happened. It happens every day. I can tell you, we may not admit to it, but we all learn every day. And there are things that we don't do right. And we always need to, go and tell our clients, hey, this is what's happened. And, this was a mistake from my part or my team's part, but we figured out a way, and this is what, we are able to do for you. So that goes a long way in the journey building that trust with the clients, because it's not a one-time deal. The customer that you are working with, he could be doing 10 other transactions with you, or he could be bringing 10 other people to you. So always doing the right thing for them, not the right thing for you, right thing for them, goes a long way building that relationship and trust through the process. So we started the business, 5 years ago. Last year, we sold about 120 deals last year. The first year, we sold 20. So from 20 to 120, I can tell you the main reason is, building that trust with that customer, doing the right stuff for the customers, and always, admitting when you didn't do something right, or focusing on the customer part and working backwards from it. And the other part that I want to definitely, stress to everybody is always using yourself as an example goes a long way. Like as Brian did. So it resonates with them. Always trying to understand what the requirements are and how you had your own experiences adds a lot of value to them. And definitely, helps you to complete the sale and create that urgency. You don't have to create the urgency by telling them. You can create the urgency by giving examples and giving data that creates the urgency by itself. You don't have to explicitly tell them that you have to buy the home. You can tell them with examples and data that would, help them to create that urgency.
No, that's great stuff, Chandra. I love that, because you do have to have accountability. And I like how you disarm people and you get on their side, because you really don't know what they're going through until you put your feet in their shoes, right? And if something goes wrong, step up and say, hey, this went wrong and this is how we can resolve it or correct it or whatever. Or just sometimes just saying sincerely, I'm sorry, unfortunately this happened, but this is what we're doing to rectify it. I think that's great advice, and to always put the client's wants and needs ahead of yours and really get on their side, create that accountability, pre-frame to them expectations, create that team atmosphere. I'm going to jump from Chandra, which was dynamite. I'm going to go over to Brian Yarber. He's out in Montana. Look, he's along the river. We got 5 minutes left. So I'm going to give Brian and Cameron the last 5 minutes, like a speed round, on handling buyers' objections and isolating those objections to get them moving forward right now in this type of market.
Perfect. Happy New Year, guys. Welcome, Wendy and Chandra. It's nice to see you guys on this meeting. Listen, the consistency I heard from everybody was this, and it's the title of my book. The market is never ready. You have to be ready for the market you're about to get into, if you're ready to get into a market. And that's our job. I have to be attached, like Chandra was saying, you have to be attached to the client's outcome. Because if the outcome of the client isn't to move tomorrow, I still can serve them today. And what I want to be able to do is walk them through a journey that actually I'm doing them a disservice if I begin to show them property too soon. I love statistics, but I don't give them statistics until I know if they're ready for them. So I take a step back, right? This is a foundational principle about building trust. If I'm attached to the outcome of the client, then the stories that we heard and the things that we do to walk them through the process is a different method. So it sounds like this, a seller is looking for a 10 buyer. And if you're not aware of what a 10 buyer looks like, let me share with you what a seller is looking for in today's market, right? Because every market has great deals. We heard that. Every market has overpriced deals. Every market has this, that, and the other thing. But the buyer who's on the fence, I like that. I congratulate them. Listen, I'd sit on the fence if I were you right now too. But here's what I would be doing. I'd be so prepared for competing with a cash investor that I have to be ready to present an offer to a seller that the seller would choose over that buyer who has all cash. And I would have them prepared with my lender, right? So my buckets are real simple. I have an opportunities bucket, and those are the clients that I'm incubating into a 10 client. I've got my lead bucket, and my lead bucket is the bucket of people who interact with me to become a 10 buyer. And then there's the appointment bucket. And when you do this, you don't want to show too many people property too early, because you will ruin a great buyer if you show them the perfect home today and they're not prepared to buy it. Because when they are prepared, they're going to hold on to that one. Well, I really like that property, Brian. That's the one. So I ruined them, right? Because they trust me to provide a service like Nordstrom's. I need to walk, because if it's a first-time home buyer or a buyer buying their 10th home, The difference is the one buying their 10th home has had a lot of experiences. So I better be able to provide the American dream, because if I don't, I'm never going to be that person they buy their 11th or 12th home with. So I've set this system up to work just principally that the very first time I meet you, whether you're buying your first home or your 10th home, I'm just going to walk you through a journey that doesn't ruin you, and I'm going to prepare you for a great experience. So I'll stop at that.
I love that. That's great stuff. I'm going to jump for Brian because we're down to the last couple of minutes. Cam, sorry, I'm going to send you.
It's okay.
But go ahead.
Real quick, we got 1 minute. So I guess my biggest thing to share with you guys is, like everyone says, is sharing your stories. Stories show knowledge, knowledge shows experience, and that's why a buyer would choose you. You have two types of objections. You have objections from prospects and you have objections from your clients, right? Those are two totally different things. The objections from prospects, you are going to typically handle with your knowledge of your business, your team, everything. That is how you become a client. Once they're a client, you can then help them with numbers of the market. You need to be the market expert. So you need to make sure that you have different objection handlers for different types of buckets, like Brian was just saying there. As Dave said earlier, I'm down here in South Florida. He's obviously in the snow. People move down to where I am because they're tired of the cold. They're tired of living in New York or Pennsylvania or whatever it is. They want to get to Florida. So you have to lean into that with them. Just like Dave was saying, he leans into making memories with his kids skiing. I do the same of, I know you're tired of being in the cold. It's paradise down here in Florida. Lean into that. I always ask, guys, one of the biggest things, I know we're at our time here, but one of the biggest things is make sure you're doing your pre-qualification calls with your buyers. Make sure that they're pre-qualified. Make sure that you're asking all the pre-qualification questions. Tell me your goals. Tell me your Florida dream. Why do you want to move here? And that is going to help you guys determine if they are a 10 buyer, like Brian was saying, or they're a lower end buyer. We actually use A, B, and C leads, same deal. But you need to make sure you're doing that. And if they're not an A buyer, you can incubate them. Our average time that a buyer was in our system prior to COVID was 8 months. It's okay that they're not buying right away. Get them into your CRM, get them on a drip, get them through seeing properties, and make sure if they're not chosen you as their realtor, they're still in the prospect stage, and you need to make sure that you are communicating with them that you are the best agent to help them find a home on day zero, guys. Day zero listings. That's what I call it. It works really well. And that just means that obviously when the home hits the market, you're going to be the first to see it. And we have the best opportunity of getting it. Yeah, that's it, you guys.
I love
it. Be the expert in your area.
Let me interrupt 1 second. I'm just going to hit you with this question. And this pertains to your location, your hyper local market. So if somebody's coming down from up north and they want to get out of the snow, and they say, listen, the market in Florida is elevated over the last 24 months, probably 30% on average. Why should I buy right now when I'm not getting the same money for my house up north to buy an elevated house down in Florida?
That's easy. That's because we have sun down here. Remember, your wife that you just talked to earlier today, what was the conversation you were just telling me about? She says she is so sick of 10-degree weather. You can come down here and remember, Pete, remember when you have your property down here, when you're not here living in it, you're going to be renting it out. It's going to be covering its cost. It's almost like having a free vacation property down here. Now is the time to buy. And you're absolutely right. Prices are inflated. In 2019, though, I was having this exact same conversation with my clients. And then you remember what happened in 2020? It's dipped a little. Everyone was panicking. Everyone was holding off. And then it doubled in the last 2 years. I believe we could be in the very same situation here. Now, I don't know the market. I don't know exactly where it's going to be, but I can tell you every single one of my clients that held off in 2019 never have bought a home. Their wives are still mad at them and they never have been able to enjoy Florida, versus everybody that did buy in 2019 has enjoyed their home through COVID. They got to stay in a state that's completely open. Now, a lot of my New Yorkers, remember, completely locked down. So they understand that it's completely open. You got the beaches, you got the restaurants, you can move to paradise. And when you're not here, you rent the property out and it pays for itself. That is why you need to buy right now. But hey, guys, it might not be the right time for you, and that's okay. I'm going to be able to find you the home when it's right for you on a day zero listing. And then, like I said, I kind of go back into stories with other people that bought that or have doubled their value and sold and bought 3 homes. And then I go into stories from people that didn't buy and they go, which one do you want to be? I'm going to start using Dave's QTR, and I'm going to say it just like he did. The QTR, your QTR is running out, and they're gonna go, yeah, absolutely. What's QTR? Oh, that's your quality time remaining. That's what that's why you've worked so hard your whole life, is so that we can leverage your QTR, and you're gonna do that here in Florida. Let's help you find that perfect property, and let's get going on it.
Great response. I love the tie down. I love the QTR. I love building the whole thing about the people that miss the market. You know, take them back in time, you guys, because everybody thinks they're going to have perfect timing on the real estate market, and ask them what their goals are and how long they're going to live in that property. You know, you have to really, connect the dots with them and so forth. I love that. Stay gold, pony boy. That's awesome. I love that stuff. Listen, great part today on everybody's behalf. Chandra, you're rock and roll. I love you, buddy. Keep it going. Wendy, unreal. Wendy Ross up in Orange County. If you have any referrals, send Wendy. Send them up to Orange County. Call on Wendy. If you got referrals to Washington or Texas, Chandra's your guy. He'll let everybody explore the whole state. He'll take good care of them. So listen, great stuff today from everyone. Let's pick it up next week. Everybody stay positive. The market's flying. Let's get people going. All right. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a great meeting. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.